Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Johnson, and I will be representing Neubert PTO as the moderator for this event. The objective of Neubert PTO is to provide the students of Neubert the opportunity to achieve their fullest potential in a stimulating environment through the cooperative interaction of parents, teachers, and staff. We believe D300's Board of Education has a direct impact on this objective and want to provide the families of Neubert and D300 as a whole the opportunity to learn more about the candidates running for office. District 300's Board of Education is made up of 7 community members. Because our district covers many townships, no more than 3 members may be from the same township. Members are elected for 4-year terms. This year, Christine Burkett of Dundee, David Scarpino of Huntley, and Emmanuel Thomas of Dundee will continue their term with 4 seats up for election. This year's candidates are Stephen Fiorentino and Robert Reining from Algonquin Township, Connie Kane, Lori Parman, and Nancy Zettler from Dundee Township, Randy Gauthier, Christina Constanti, and Utola Mankind from Rutland Township. Mankindi from Rutland Township. Since 2 sitting board members are from Dundee Township, only 1 additional person may be elected from Dundee. The format for tonight will include an introduction, 5 questions that were created with the results of a survey of Neubert families, and a closing statement. 1 minute is given to each candidate for their introduction and closing comments, and 2 minutes to answer each question. The order of speaking was randomly assigned. Steve Fiorentino had a schedule conflict for this evening, but we were able to schedule a separate time to record his answers and include them in this video. We will now begin and ask Randy to introduce herself.
I'm Randy Gauthier. I have 3 children. My oldest 2 are in high school and middle school, and I have a 2-year-old who should be attending a D300 preschool in the fall. I've been married for 17 years, and we've been in this district for 8. I've always had a passion for supporting my community. I've had a lot of experience volunteering in my kids' school. For this district, I volunteered for the PTO at Wright Elementary starting in 2015. I did serve 2 years as PTO co-president there. And while I was doing that, I also volunteered regularly in the school library. And then I took a job as a paraprofessional, worked one-on-one with 3- and 4-year-olds in the classroom and supported the teachers' classroom duties. My husband and I are also licensed foster parents, and through DCFS, we had training for different things that could affect children. So I have a lot of experience in a classroom setting.
Thank you. Tola, your turn.
Okay. My name is Tola McKinday. I've been in the district for the past 20 years. I have 4 kids that went through all the District 300 schools. I'm very passionate about community service because I know when you give back, you always get something back, like a whole lot more. I'm very passionate about public education. I would like to be a voice for the unheard and for the underrepresented when making district decisions. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Constanti. I'm running for District 300 School Board. I've been very active in the district. I'm a volunteer at both my children's schools, Gilbert's and Dundee Middle School. I'm a member of the Parent Advisory Council here at the district. We influence questions for the superintendent choice that we just made. Besides volunteering at the school district, I'm also a volunteer at the Dundee Park District as a soccer coach. I'm also a leader at American Heritage Girls, and I work full-time as a registered nurse at a community hospital. Very active in the community, and my passion for running is accountability and increased parent and community member involvement to further our students' successes. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie.
Hello, thanks for inviting me. I am Connie Kane, and I am a lifelong Illinoisan, and I have lived in Gilbert's for 30 years. I have a son who graduated from District 300 schools, and I am a certified public accountant. I am running for this office because my background finance, and accounting will enable me to play an important role in budget discussions and learn long-term financial planning for the district. The school board has a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. My analysis of the district's finances reveal that the district is $19 million in the red, which means it does not have enough money to pay all its bills. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thanks, Connie. Nancy, your
Hi,
turn.
I'm Nancy Zutler. First of all, thank you guys for having us. This is a great opportunity to answer questions for the public. I have lived in the district since 1999. This is my first term on the board. I'm serving currently as the vice president of the board. I'm seeking another term because we have a lot more work to do to get the kids back on track, both emotionally and educationally after COVID, and I'd like to be involved in that. I've been involved in the district for over 20 years, almost virtually since we moved in here. I took my oldest daughter and put her in a wagon and went door to door to support a referendum, and I've been working on things like that ever since. I was involved in passing 2 referendums back in '06 that brought us back from the brink of financial disaster, frankly. And then in 2011, I again helped to run a group of people to go to Springfield and fight the money taken from us to go to Sears and the EDA.
Thank you. Lori, your turn, please.
Thanks for having this. I'm Lori Parman. I have lived in District 300 for 32 years. I have 5 children that graduated from Dundee Crown High School. And I have 10 grandchildren, 1 at Sleepy Hollow Elementary. And over the next 4 years, I will have 4 more entering District 300 schools. So in addition to all of that, I have taught in the district as both an elementary teacher and a high school teacher. I have a master's in educational leadership and a doctorate in the same. I've participated on 2 boundary committees and the committee to align the Common Core standards for literacy. So I bring a lot of experience to the table, and this is why I'm running for the board.
Thank you. Robert.
Hello, thank you for having us. I'm Robert Reining. I am a resident of Lake in the Hills, and I have been since 1999. I have 2 kids, a daughter that's a junior at Jacobs, a son that graduated in 2021 from Jacobs High School. They both went through District 300 schools, Lake in the Hills Elementary and Westfield. I have been a volunteer and a very big part of my children's educational background for all their years. I'm a single dad, very involved in my kids. The last few years have really made me want to get involved in the schools and in the school board and making the proper decisions for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fiorentino, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. And thank you to the Neubert PTO for hosting the forum. My name is Steve Fiorentino. My wife and I moved to Algonquin 30 years ago, and we quickly and really passionately fell in love with the community. We decided to get involved. We started volunteering through church and some other organizations. And our daughter, Stephanie, actually began her path through public education through Neubert. So she then progressed to Westfield and lastly graduated from Harry D. Jacobs and had, I would say, in my opinion, an exceptional experience with District 300. As Stephanie moved through public education, I made a decision to run in a very contested school board election. I worked hard and won, and have diligently worked to represent the community as a whole and really protect and improve District 300. So I have served as board vice president, I've served as board secretary, and have then chaired 3 board committees, which is where a lot of the work is done, frankly. I currently serve as chair of the Facilities and Oversight Committee, or as we call it, the CFOC, and I co-chair the board finance committee with Mr. Stevens. I look forward to answering your questions to the best of my ability. And again, thank you.
We'll now move on to our first question, which you will have 2 minutes to answer. How should we measure and increase student academic achievement across students from age 3 to 22? How do you envision the board supporting differentiation for students at all academic levels? Connie, if you would answer first, please.
We need first to agree on standards for academic achievement so the student's progress can be measured through the system and grade level. Differentiation in the classroom is not a new concept. Good teachers will be able to determine the best way to educate each child and, if necessary, develop a tutoring program.
Thank you. Lori, your turn.
Well, in terms of measuring student achievement, I think it's the first order of business if we want to improve our academic scores. There's various ways that you can do an inventory of student learning. I would recommend a variety of approaches. I have a few notes here that I made. I would recommend, first of all, a long view study of our district and our successes along the way for a variety of years. I would go back actually to 1979 because that's when the Federal Department of Education started. And if we look at the scores of all the districts around us and many districts in Illinois, our scores are eerily similar. And I think I have an idea of how we got to that approach. But in terms of studying individual achievement, I would recommend, and I believe this would have to be a commission study, I would recommend following a student group through, in each school, through their years in the district, following their scores, their successes, and so forth. Because in order to know where success and failure lies, we need to do that inventory, and we need to find out how students are performing. I did a study for Westfield a few years, actually it's been about 10 years now, and I found some interesting information that the group that I studied, the group that did the best was the special education students, and you wouldn't find that out unless you dug deep and studied. So I would really recommend a rigorous study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy.
While I'm not a huge supporter of test scores as a measurement of success, I think iReady is probably the best tool that we have right now. It challenges children as their skill level grows, and there's an immediate and continued monitoring of progress. I support differentiation in the classroom and want to help by working up and to provide a wide range of materials to the classrooms. So, for example, in elementary, that could be books that span multiple reading levels. And then, because not every student is on the same reading level in second grade or learns at the same pace. Teachers should be trusted as the in-class experts to recognize differentiation between students. And then, of course, working with the parents if needed to explain recommended class materials. I worked in a school and I saw firsthand the different ways that teachers would, differentiate between the students. You've got a pre-K teacher who pairs a child receiving speech services with a strong talker. Elementary doing centers where children can be put together to work on similar assignments. Rocket math where, they move on to the next level, based on their success in that for that one page of questions. I right now I think iReady, my students, my kids at home, they've enjoyed using iReady.
Thank you. Christina.
So to measure and increase student academic achievement, the typical, like Randy and Lori were speaking of, were typical classroom performance, graduation rates, and results from standardized tests. What we need to do as a school district is set high expectations. I think during our COVID time, I think a lot of our standards have lowered, and our test scores have lowered also. So setting high expectations for our students and staff, focus on student achievement, and expect hard work, engage in strategic planning, and cultivate effective school boards. Teacher quality is the most important school-related factor in increasing our school district's performance. Making sure that our teachers are well-equipped with resources and leadership in their departments is very important. Making sure the administrators of each school understand the teaching curriculum, teaching styles, and able to help support those teachers is very important as well. And some strategies that can be used in the classroom to help motivate the students is to promote growth mindset over fixed mindset, develop meaningful and respectful relationship with the students, grow a community of learners in the classroom, establish high expectations and clear goals, and be inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you. Tola?
Yes, I think, I guess based on my experience, my 4 kids, each one of them, a couple of them were good test takers and some of them weren't. So I'm not really crazy about test taking has been the sole tool used for academic achievement. I think right now iReady is what's being used, and from the strategic plan that was gone over at the school board meeting the other night, seems like that's still the direction to go. I think it's a good tool at the moment, but I think we should continue looking at different tools out there to make sure we're using the most state-of-the-art and the most effective one out there. What I think the board should do, and one thing we need to know as well is all kids don't learn the same way, they learn differently. I would like a district that will provide equitable education for all our kids so they can learn the best way they can, so that they can all excel as an individual and as a whole child. I think during the COVID months, it shows us an example of that, where some kids were doing great and some weren't. So we know they definitely don't, it's not a one size fits all for education in general. So I'd like to see us work with our kids, because I think every student deserves equitable education, and they deserve something that they're going to excel in and be the best self for themselves. So that's my
Thank you.
on that.
Robert?
Okay. The academic achievement is already measured by ISBE. Less than 30% of D300 students can read and do math at grade level. Our teachers are finding that they are not able to focus on courses that they are required to teach, and that is affecting not only the teachers, but the students also. As for how I envision the board supporting differentiation on all grade levels, I would like to see kids be kids again and scale back on some of the SEL. With today's pressure in social media, it is important to find balance between making learning fun again and not having everything teeter around feelings and emotions all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
So I agree with, as far as the testing, I agree that right now iReady is our best tool, because it is something that's relatively, you don't have to wait 6 months to get results, things like that. You can look at how a kid is doing almost immediately when you do that. So doing that a couple times throughout the year, I think, is the best way. As far as differentiation, I agree with Connie, what is best used by the teachers. They're the ones that are most able to determine what each child's level is, and they can manage their lesson plans to take care of that. The one thing that I think is extremely important is we have to understand, and I think that what's happened during COVID is something that's made us all much more aware of this, is that you can't teach a child who's not ready to learn. And when I say not ready to learn, I'm not talking about having a piece of, a notebook and a pen in your backpack. I'm talking about a child who is feeling confident, is feeling less pressure, feels valued, feels like they belong. And also, if there's any issues that are going on that they need help with, they're getting help with those issues. And that can vary from child to child, from time to time. So it's something that I think it's very important to have things like SEL in place and other ways to make sure that a child is mentally and physically healthy enough to be able to learn. From there, you take your child as individually as possible, and you make sure that you are crafting their education to fit their abilities and needs.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with a quote. It's actually from our part of our District 300 board page, and it says, "The District 300 strives to implement a comprehensive assessment system that measures and communicates student learning and program effectiveness to all the stakeholders." What I read into that, what I believe it says, is all stakeholders, meaning family and community. And the district does its best to be transparent in all this. With this as the backdrop, let me say that as I spend time in schools, and I think I've visited 24 now since January 3rd, I talk to a lot of building leaders and educators, and this is a high priority for all our staff, and it's certainly an area of high priority for the Board of Education as well. The iReady assessment and ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, are two of several tools that we use, and parent engagement is really a large part of this process. For those of you that are parents, you know that these things are communicated to you through our schools, through our administrators, or through our teachers. They, along with other assessment and interventions, are meant to close the gaps that we have in achievement. And we do have them, right? We're all striving to improve gaps, even under normal years, but we obviously have seen greater gaps in achievement post the pandemic. So I believe the current and past boards have supported these efforts, utilizing these tools, both state and local. And we also hear from the leaders in each level of education with regular updates, meaning that regularly our leadership, our administrative team report. So it's one of many ways, and I will end by saying we have improved 10% on our achievement as it relates to graduation rates, and we're all very proud of that in District 300, and that's been in the last about 10 years, so thank you.
We're on to our next question. Are there areas of curriculum you feel should be added to or removed from the district's current classes? Robert, you're first this time.
Thank you. Areas of curriculum that should be removed are parts that add no value to the fundamental education of our children. I think the focus should be strictly on educating the kids of our district with the basic academics, and omitting so much focus on SEL. I was at the last board meeting, and as a 30-year automotive technician, I was pleased to see the direction that the district was going with technical classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie, you're next.
Okay. Children should focus on core academic skills like reading, writing, and arithmetic. History and social studies complement those skills. Beyond that, the curriculum must be carefully developed to target each child's academic achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori.
Well, we've talked a lot about, people have said things about what shouldn't be there. But I want to address one thing that I noticed. As a teacher in the district, I was a fervent reader of the administrative memos, and each department would write in about what were their directions, goals, things they were doing in that department. And I was a little bit alarmed when I saw that the teaching of the Civil War and the teaching of World War II were on the chopping block, and that the social studies departments were considering removing them in favor of some other electives that were, in my opinion, not as important, such as sports resistance, which is not a PE course. But I came to the board meeting on, I believe it was August 9th, and that was the night where they presided over the loss of the teaching of World War II. And I think these are important things for school districts to keep in their curriculum so that students understand if we don't know what happened in the past, we're not going to avoid it in the future. So that was something that was very important to me, and I would like to make sure that we don't remove things that are historically important.
Thank you. Christina?
I would like to see more variety in post-secondary education and training. There are many great careers that can be explored by our junior and seniors in high school. The community colleges offer 2-year degrees and vocational certificates in varieties of programs. Having a good relationship with the community colleges in our area can help expand our district's offerings. I work as a registered nurse. I graduated from Elgin Community College with a 2-year ADN degree, and I am a professional now. I've got a BSN working on my master's, and I made a great start at community college. There are very lucrative occupations that do not require an expensive college education. Having great relationships having great relationships with companies in our area too will help. I know I work locally, and one of the school districts, not ours, but has a medical, they call it a medical academy, and it's for sophomores and juniors in high school, and their courses include sports medicine, medical English, medical ethics, medical interventions, biomedical interventions. They offer field trips, guest speakers, and they come to the hospital for job shadowing experiences. I've met a few of these students at the hospital, and they exhibit such excitement every time they come in and motivation for the opportunity to participate. I would love to champion a similar program here at District 300.
Thank you. Randy?
Hi, I'm currently pretty satisfied with the curriculum. My oldest is a sophomore, and he's actually going to be doing the full-time dual credit program. He just got accepted to ECC. So, and then, having been in the district for 8 years, I have a second kid coming up, and I've seen a lot of what they've learned, and I do believe their education to be very well-rounded. I would agree that I don't want to lose, history courses that others may, find, relevant or productive in like what they want to learn at the high school level. I think our history is incredibly important, and we should teach that. I think what I've seen them do well is adding more relevant materials to the classrooms, more relevant books, things that kids can like expand upon, where it's a little bit just more it's not what I learned exactly, like the books I was reading in high school. There's more materials that we can have added to our libraries and to our classrooms. And SEL, it's incredibly important. If anything, I believe it could be expanded upon. I have a foster parent license, and I've learned that kids, when they're in a state of trauma, which we all are, I think, coming out of post-COVID, you aren't ready to learn. If you're going through a trauma response, you're in a fight or flight mode, you have endorphins, things are happening, kids might have lost family members, so we have to continue, at least for now, to teach the whole child and treat the entire child in the school building. So I think life skills classes would be great to add if I had to put one thing for teenagers.
Thank you. Nancy?
So I think we should make it clear that the Board of Education and the district itself does not make curriculum. That's something done at the state level and with ISBE, and comes in statutorily and everything. So, but what I would like to see more, and I think we're already starting to do that, is incorporating some different reading in different classes related to things about racial issues and other issues that are important. Like, it's good to have all kids be able to see themselves in a book, You're incorporating more, for instance, African-American books and novels or those written by African-American people. It's good to be able to, for kids to be able to see that when they're studying history, and all kinds of races in this country have built this country, and there's plenty of different history for us to look at. But as far as the history classes, I don't believe that we've actually removed any like total history, like the entire world history. I think that there are different classes now. They're not as many maybe, but there are still classes that kids in high school especially can choose from. And I applaud that. I think that's a good idea. As far as adding other potential classes, I think we're doing pretty good, and I'm happy with the curriculum as it's been coming down. I wish they would, excuse me, I wish that the state would get their act together on the sex ed issues, because I think right now our district is doing fine with the law that passed a couple of years ago. We didn't make any changes in our curriculum because we were already at standard, so we had no, we made no changes. And I don't anticipate that we will, if they ever do amend the law, which they're talking about doing, but what I understand is that it's not gonna happen this year. So, but I think that, it'd be nice if they got their act together and straightened all that out, but that's nothing that we have any control over.
Thank you. Donna. Sorry, my tongue tripped. Oh.
That's all right. I think in regards to curriculum, I'd like to see, just to tag back on what Nancy said, I'd like to see more of the school materials that includes the diversity that we have in our district. I'd like to see, I'd like each kid to be able to see themselves in some of these materials. I would like for our curriculum to include factual history, not the ones that's been, whitewashed or whatnot. The whole history, the good and the bad, so that kids can understand what history, and because that's what history is all about. I really think right now the pathway program that we have in our district is pretty phenomenal. I think it's something we can expand on. I would like to see us, I know Huntley District has some medical pathway programs. I would like to see a district kind of take a look at that. I think it's something that they're probably looking at right now, but I would like to see more of that. I would like to always see us trying to look at different ways, creative ways to challenge our kids and not just make them very complacent. Technology is really great right now, so the more we can challenge them academically, mentally, it's kind of good for them. So that's I don't think anything should be removed at the present moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say not at this time. We the administrators review this on a regular basis with the board. We actually had a rigorous process through the fall, and I believe it was concluded at one of the December meetings, if I'm not mistaken, with some suggestions for additions and deletions in both curriculum and publishers. So it was a major review, and that was our most recent update. I would like to add, though, that I would be supportive of increasing our pathways programs as well, and we have 12 now, as well as our career and technical education, or CTE. We have one of the best CTE programs in the area. Actually, we have one of the 3 only welding programs in the state of Illinois, and it's always crowded, and it needs to be increased.
Our next question is, D300 has felt increasingly divided over the past few years. Do you believe the Board of Education has a role in creating a cohesive community, and how do you see improvement happening?
Well, I would say absolutely. I've worked hard to consistently communicate and regularly engage with our community. Actually, I proposed and chaired the Community Engagement Committee back a few years ago, and it was a diverse committee that was made up of community members, members of PTOs, staff, and students. It did great work. We advised Mr. Hyde and the board at the time. I think we should restart this type of committee. I think certainly some adjustments need to be had, but I'd be very willing to take this on, to propose it to the board in the near future. And I think this would help us do critical work as part of the strategic plan. Now, having said this, we do have a relatively small number of community members wanting to bring down our school system as well as public education. I don't think that's, I think it's pretty obvious. And unfortunately, a few of our current candidates are part of this small but loud group. I'll continue to do my best and listen to all as I make decisions to govern District 300 on the board as one of 7 members. I do believe healthy engagement is one of the critical success factors for all of us. The school board should engage in an ongoing and two-way conversation. And this, I will conclude by saying this needs to occur outside of public comments at the board meetings, because I think, as the community knows, the board is very limited in what we can do, and it's truly not a dialogue. And unfortunately, some people have suggested it is, and we are not allowed to dialogue. So it needs to happen outside the board meetings, and I'm supportive of that.
I believe that the Board of Education definitely has a role in improving the stressors or the division that we see. We don't just see it in District 300, we see it all over the country. You know, it's become a battlefield, and people are passionate about what they believe in. And where I see the board being a leader in these things is listening, entertaining the other side on both sides. Both sides need to entertain the other opinion, because it's in entertaining the opinions of others that we come together. We decide. We can't just have one opinion. And I have concerns that over time, the 3 chambers, if you want to describe a school system, the 3 chambers, the administration, the union, the school board, for all different reasons. The administration for educating, the union for redressing teachers' concerns, and the school board for redressing issues that the parents bring up. And I think each of these 3, and not just District 300, but all school districts, have kind of melded into one pot. And there's a lot of uniformity of thought. And I think that in diversity of thought, we have great riches, and we need to be willing to listen to each other, willing to bend, willing to go into territory that we're not normally comfortable with. And I think all society could take a little lesson from that. Thanks.
Thank you. Connie?
The school board is a key player in relationships with the community. School board members are the representatives of the people who elected them. Much of the problem in the community has been related to communication. The school board needs to foster the transparency and communication levels that will contribute to a cohesive community. Thank you.
Randy?
Hi, I believe a board could play a role in the division of a community. I do not believe our current board has played a role in the division we're seeing now. There's a small group that seems to want to go above the board's authority, and they've created some division at meetings and on social media. If I was elected, I would want to connect with our community, focus on working towards a common goal. Again, like a couple other people have already said, work with the unions, the teachers, parents, stakeholders, because at the heart of all of this division, we are just people who want what's best for their kids. I do not believe the way things have been gone about is the appropriate way to handle some of the things that we are seeing from certain people, parents, etc., in the community. So, but I would like to, you know, again, if elected, sit down and understand exactly what everybody wants. Like, how do we close the division in our community, because it's palpable. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Tola?
I think the division in this community kind of breaks my heart sometimes, because I feel like it can be very great, but at the same time, we have individuals that are all about themselves. And I think if we just take a step back and listen to, and kind of think back about what it is that we're doing, and think about what this is all about. This is all about our kids, and our kids are the future. And just take a step back and just think about that, and know that our kids are always with us. They see what we're doing, and they're gonna like be a replica of ourselves. And I think in neighboring districts, there are different things that are done just to keep the community unity. I think that we can leverage. I feel like we can have, there's some parents networking that we can do. I mean, outside of the pack right now, that's more social. I feel like as a board member, I think we should all be role models in regards to supporting each other and coming together to kind of do some kind of jazz sessions and just kind of figure out how we can bring a community together. Because if we have a community that we can bring together, we'll be stronger, because a house divided against each other will never stand. I feel like, I just feel like there's a lot we can do. We should try to be good listeners. While this was breaking my heart last year, I put together a Juneteenth event, which I was, and all I was doing with the Juneteenth event is to bring the community together. Because the Juneteenth event is similar to a July 4th. We should be able to celebrate it together. It shouldn't be about one group or the other. And to be honest with you, majority of the groups that were there were not people that were affected by Juneteenth, which kind of makes me, every time I look back at that makes me happy that I kind of achieved one goal with that. I'll plan to have that every year. So hopefully more people can join me. It's not all about the blacks. It's about the community. It's about us coming together as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
So I agree with Lori that this is not something that's just particular to this district, this division. This is something that's been going on across the country. And I agree with Randy that the division, at least here from my perspective, is created by a very small number of people in this district. There are 22,000 kids in this district, and they all have parents. And we've heard from the same 100 people, and that's, I think, being generous in the number, over and over and over and over and over again. And then we've heard about just as many, if not more, people on the positive side. All of that aside, though, it is the board's responsibility to try to work with everybody in the district, especially people that come to us, and we've gone out of our way often to try to answer questions, try to work with people who had disagreements, try to make sure that everybody was being respected as much as we possibly could. And we do that through people who know things better than us in this district, who are the administration. Nobody who's sitting on the board now or who will sit on the board, whatever happens in April, will ever be able to say they're a complete expert on any of this stuff, not even Lori. There's so many facets to this. It's a huge endeavor. But we have done a lot of things in the past couple of years to try to bring people closer together. We have several parent advisory committees now that are fairly new. Christina mentioned she's on one of our committees now. We have one for LGBTQ parents. We have one for African American parents, for bilingual parents. We have a whole bunch of different ones, and we're actually creating more. In fact, we've got groups and things like that at the high schools and even the middle schools that are getting kids together more and more. And I think all of that's going to work to eventually get us back together and working on together.
Thank you. Christina?
I agree that there has been a lot of division in the last few years, not just between the district and the parents, but also between groups of parents. And I feel strongly that the school board has a very important role in making sure that we, as a community, can get along. There's been, as Nancy mentioned, there's parent advisory committee meetings and different groups, and there's been lots of invitations open to all parents, and some groups of parents have shown up and have been excluded, and without warning and without any explanation. And so that does produce a lot of division between the parent groups. The school board represents the community's voice in public education, providing citizen governance and knowledge of the community's resources and needs. And the board members are the policymakers closest to the student. The school board sets the standards for achievement in the school district, incorporating the community's view of what students should know and be able to accomplish. And they are accessible to everyone in the community, and they should be, and accountable for the performance of the school in all the district. The school board is also the community's education watchdog. As the teachers union has the best interest of the teachers, the school board has the best interest of the taxpayers. The school board of education is the public's view into the activities of the district, and they set these standards for our children and the district staff. And they definitely need to be role models of behavior. As a board member, I would be respectful to every community member. There's policies that they can change as far as time for public comments and just the overall demeanor of the attitude at the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert.
All right. Since the Board of Education is elected to represent the community, I do believe the main role is creating a cohesive community. In doing so, the first step is to treat everybody equally, without prejudice, and to leave your political views and opinions out of the equation and when making informed decisions about topics that need to be addressed. And to touch on Christina's point, I received, as everybody in the district, an email, inviting everybody to the LGBTQ+ Parent Advisory Committee. I filled out the questionnaire, completely honest with it. I went to the first meeting with great conversations with the parents I was sitting with. At the end of the meeting, the parent that I was sitting with thanked me for coming, thanked me for being honest, and appreciated me being there. Me going was trying to bridge that divide that's been going on in this district. Fast forward a couple months, get an email from Adrian Harris saying that because I was not considered an ally, I was no longer able to go. That is the division that this district is pushing. It needs to end. Thank you.
Thank you. What should be done to alleviate the teacher and substitute shortage in the district? Tola.
I think the first thing we all need to do, I think from this past couple of years, as parents, some of the parents have been very aggressive. I think first and foremost, we need to step back, get off our soapbox, and kind of let the teachers do what they're trained to do, so they can do the best they can with it. We have to remember they're human beings. We have to remember they have lives. We have to remember that we cannot do what they're doing. But if we could, we wouldn't have our kids in schools. So that's the first thing. I think with that will kind of alleviate teachers resigning at the the turnover and all that. I think one thing we need to do is we need to kind of find some partnerships with colleges in the areas that we can have a contract for education kind of partnerships where we can have students that go to those schools. When they graduate, they come and teach in the district for so many years to pay for their education. Try to come up with creative ways to do that. Kind of tap into the HBCUs. Right now, diversity of our teachers are not the greatest. That's one thing. That's one of my biggest goals is we need more diverse teachers. In my 20 years in this district, not one black teacher taught my kid, and I think I have a problem with that. And I think every parent that's the same as I am have a problem with that. I feel like we can do better than that. I think our kids need to see something to be something. If they see someone like them being a teacher, that will motivate them to want to be a teacher someday. If they don't see it, there's nothing for them it doesn't show them anything that they can be that. So I think those are some of the things. I think the ECC program, we can kind of step up on that as well. So that's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Lori?
Well, we do have a what I believe is gonna be a catastrophic loss of teachers. If you look on the district website, there's a circle there that represents teacher absences. And before COVID, District 300 teachers, 10 or more teachers, 30% of District 300 teachers had used 10 or more sick days in a year. That's a lot. But after COVID, it's moved up to 50%. And it really displays that there's teachers are, and I checked on the ground to see what's causing this, because I heard people in the community saying, I said, oh, your little granddaughter has a great teacher. Well, they're never there. I'm like, no, I taught with that person. They were there every day the doors were open. No, 2 days a week they're gone. And you know how I know? Because they're not at bus duty, and then I asked, were they there? No. And this is a good teacher. But when I started checking around with friends I know in the district and teachers and having a little meeting with teachers, I found that teachers are saying, I'm burned out, I don't like what's going on, and yes, I think about quitting every single day. Is that all the teachers? No, it's not everybody. But it's enough teachers that we should be alarmed about that. And honestly, as a teacher, I felt burned out on many occasions because of changes that I think, looking back on them, changes to materials, platforms, textbooks. It takes a lot for teachers to learn these new skills and other things that are tiring them out. And I think we need to look at those things and make commitments to teachers that we're not going to change a textbook series per some reasonable amount of time and other things as well. I think we need to look at those things seriously.
Thank you. Robert?
Thank you. Given the pandemic, the last 3 years have been a challenge both recruiting and retaining teachers and substitutes. The Board of Education can reduce some of the stresses by opting out of optional curriculum, and in doing so will allow teachers to put the focus back on academics such as math, reading, science, etc. just as they were hired to do. Equally as important, it is to make sure that there is a balance of student-teacher ratios and that each classroom is properly funded when it comes to classroom supplies. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy?
I've always believed that people don't leave jobs. They leave bosses or institutions or corporations. We have to make this district attractive to young teachers and to our more senior educators as well, so that they don't want to leave. I've been endorsed by all three unions, so Lead 300, DESA, and DESPA. I plan to work with them to help them make their work environment one they don't want to leave. I've worked in a school and I've seen, the day-to-day rigors that these teachers do go through and the lack of supplies. And it was hard it was hard before COVID. So unfortunately, teachers weren't fully supported and respected during the COVID shutdown. So there is an exit of educators leaving the profession, and it might make sense to also, go into programs again, like recruit younger teachers and increase the diversity, as Tola was saying, of these teachers. We need to make D300 an attractive place to live, not only just in our homes and our businesses, but the school district. So I also think very highly that if there's people on the board who don't support the unions, I see it being very difficult to increase academic scores. This will become a district that people don't want to work in and won't attract the quality educators that we need to increase our academics. And it would be like just kind of a vicious cycle.
Thank you. Connie?
The school district needs to do some best practices research and find out how other school districts have solved these problems. We also need to determine whether or not there are issues within the district that are contributing to the shortage. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Well, it'd be interesting to find a district that has solved these problems, because this is a nationwide problem and epidemic. Teachers that I know, and I know a bunch of them now because I'm on the board, I know that they're tired. I mean, this is a difficult job regardless. Before COVID, it was a difficult job. Working through COVID made it harder, and a lot of these teachers, like a lot of our kids, are still feeling the emotional and physical, in some cases, repercussions of what they went through for the past 2.5, almost 3 years. That on top of the disrespect that they've been shown a lot lately from a lot of different venues, and the fact that they're trying to get their lives back together like the rest of us are or have, and they're also dealing with kids whose families are trying to get their lives back together, and it's just like snowballing. So I think we need to support our teachers as much as possible. I think the reason that we do have a higher absentee rate is because a lot of teachers just need that time still. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of it's the same things happening with substitutes, so we don't have as many people to replace them. But I think that we're doing a better job now with making the job more attractive in the area and giving them some leeway as far as like taking some days off of things. These are all days that they're entitled to. If they use them, they are entitled to use them. It's not like they're taking days that they're not entitled to use. But, so of course it's difficult to, no teacher really likes to take a day off because the preparation they have to do for their substitute teacher is probably worse than being there, right? So we just have to be understanding, we have to help them through this, and I'm confident that they'll come back, and we'll start getting more younger teachers coming back.
Thank you. Christina?
I am supported by many teachers. I have many teachers in my family and a friends support network. I support teachers and their unions. However, I have not sought endorsement by any teachers union, as I believe it is a huge conflict of interest as a school district board member. As far as the teacher shortage, education requirements for new teachers have been lowered. To make sure that these new teachers succeed, we need to have comprehensive evaluations. A year's worth of test scores alone do not tell the progress of the teacher, just as we know they don't show the progress of the student all the time. Residency programs for new teachers. I really like what Tola said about coordinating with colleges for new teachers to come to our school district after they graduate. And also, we have to remember there's people coming back after long periods of break that they would see a lot of value in a residency program for returning teachers. As I said before, training the principals in effective teaching curriculum skills will also help them lead their teachers in developing those skills. It also fosters great relationships between the principals and the staff of the school. Last night at the Parent Advisory Council meeting, I brought up something too. Todd Rowling had said that the #1 prevention of safety behavioral issues at the school are well-trained staff. And a lot of those teachers, instead of making those connections with the children in the classroom, have to be out monitoring hallways. I offered parent volunteers to be vetted and trained so we could be in the schools, at the cafeterias, at the playgrounds, to help alleviate the stress on the teachers and staff.
Thank you.
Actually, just in the fall, November, I attended this session. It was called the Illinois Educator Shortage Study. It was done by University of Illinois. It was a cohort, and a lot of it was very concerning to all of us, right? And it included a wide variety of education, including leadership. But specifically with this, I can tell you that the administration and staff is working hard in the area of recruitment and retention of all positions. Several strategies have already been taken. I'll name a few because I think they're important. a few years ago. Proposal from Mr. Hyde and his team was to create a position of permanent substitutes. I think we heard that over a couple meetings. It was a fairly robust ask as far as from a budgetary standpoint, but the board did approve it, and I think it's one of the better things we've done, to be very honest. And I say that because when I travel to the schools, I hear this over and over from both parents. I certainly hear from the principals that were once stuck at 6:30 and 7 in the morning calling substitutes. Some schools have one, some have two, some have three. But clearly, it was a good a supportive step by the board. Another example is EduStaff. And I know we had a challenging start to it, but I hear it's better. I think it's good to have a professional organization that's all they do, and I sense that it's taken a lot of burden off the human resources folks. So I think that those two things are huge. But I would say that it's up to all of us. I would say that both school and parent leadership, we all must take this opportunity to recruit. And I do my best. I was with two students today at a Hampshire school, and did my best to recruit them both so that next year they're looking to District 300 after they do their teaching and get their certificate.
Our final question is, how would state laws and guidelines from the State Board of Education or professional organizations influence your decisions? Christina, you're first this time.
State agencies influence establishment, selection, and regulation of curriculum, teaching methods, and instructional materials in their schools. State governments are responsible for establishing requirements for high school graduation. State governments set the standards for the curriculum, overlooking the major subjects of math, science, language arts, and social studies. Many states observe school progress through the use of assessments and exams. The Illinois Constitution, the majority of the laws that govern public education are located in Chapter 105 of the Illinois Compiled Statutes. These laws must be adhered to. As a board member, these laws would influence my decisions. However, interpretation of laws and mandates can be flexible and subjective. As a board member, a priority for me would be to have our school district maintain a great legal team. They should investigate unique topics that come up, reaching out to multiple experts for a collaborative decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert.
With each new state law that is implemented regarding education, it is much harder for teachers to keep up with. Since guidelines are not laws, and the district has the power to implement what it feels is necessary, should be taken into consideration when allowing new curriculum into the district. When it comes to laws, the district may not have an option to opt out of certain curriculums. It is then that the parents should be made aware of their rights on opting out their children choosing to do certain curriculums. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy.
I just would like to mention that I'd be bound by the oath of office to follow the laws set forth by the state. I would also adhere to mandates as necessary, guidelines. Second, I would listen to professional organizations and apply their expertise when making a decision. A board member or anyone in decision-making position, it's important to seek out the knowledge of experts to fully understand materials presented before coming to a conclusion. I do not share the opinion that we can opt out of certain laws or state curriculums. I think that you probably should have to go a little bit higher. I think everybody would like to be able to potentially opt out of things they don't always want to do. But again, like, that's my answer.
Thank you. Lori.
Well, as I look at the question, it talks about state law and guidelines. There are as a school board, we have to fulfill the state laws. That's what we were given well, I'm sure we raise our hand and swear to do that. And so there's not a lot of room there. If things are, have guidelines with them, those are more along the lines of you can do it this way, or, you know, those have a little bit of room. But I think the thing that helps parents the most is if there's something that they do not want their child exposed to, that the district provides them with an opt-out or a religious exemption for whatever parts of the curriculum that they don't want their child exposed to. And I think that's a really important part of what a district offers a parent, so that they can partner with the parents instead of saying, well, this is how it is. Because if we say this is how it is enough, then parents will exit the schools. Those that can, and those that can't, those are the people who really feel stuck if there's something they don't want taught to their child.
Thank you. Tola?
I think, from my perspective, I think state laws and guidelines are something that we probably would swear an oath to abide by. I think laws have to be abiding by. So, I think in my role as a board member, I think that would be the first thing, to abide by the rules. And also, when we get when the laws and the guidelines comes down, I think it's something that we can always take a look at to see what kind of deviations can be made to benefit our kids. Because sometimes not everything is very, very explicit. So I think taking a look at the laws and trying to see if there's leeway in some situations or not. And also making sure that everyone understands, especially our parents, that laws are sometimes being brought down from the state, not within the district. So if they have any, they're not in agreement with any of those. The board member is not really in control of that. It's the state that they need to go to. And also, even if some of the laws are not funded, like transportation and stuff like that, still needs to be followed. I'm pretty much, to me that when there's a mandate or there's a law, we still need to follow it, even if you're in disagreement with it. We have to just find ways to make it work for our students and make sure everybody is in kind of good standing regarding those.
Thank you. Nancy?
Oh.
Yeah, I looked the wrong place.
So yes, of course, the laws that are passed, we need to follow the laws, and so you don't usually get much of a say in what happens. Although, what happens a lot, like for instance with curriculum, it's what we are mandated to teach through the laws, and mandates are just like laws. That they may say you have to teach, for instance, math, okay? But what you teach and how you teach it is often up to the administration. That's something that's not etched in stone. Guidelines, like Lori said, they're not necessarily something that has to be followed. For instance, the Illinois Association of School Boards has a whole bunch of governance guidelines and things like that they tell us to do all the time. Doesn't necessarily mean we follow them, but a lot of them are based, and I would say most of them are based in evidence and based in good practices. We are doing, I know, I think, well, June 15th, our board is having a governance meeting with people from the IASB to update us on things and see where we can tweak things and things like that. So it is a guidance thing. As far as how these things affect your day-to-day decisions as a board member, it totally depends on what it's about. Like for instance, with guidance, if they say that you should, trying to think of a good example, like periodic reporting and things like that. They say you should do that. We'll take a look at it. If it's something that our administration thinks it's something we should do, we'll do it. If it's something they don't think is necessary and actually could be a burden, that's another issue. As far as teachers, the teachers know that they're mandated to do whatever we're mandated to do, so it usually works out fine.
Thank you. And Connie?
State laws should always be considered but one-size-fits-all guidelines must be dealt with individually and assessed for their impact on D300. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I heard the question, I think I hear two different questions embedded in the question. So let me approach them a little bit each a little separately. You know, board members don't have the discretion to pick or choose which policies or laws that are mandated that we could follow or not follow. It's just not that way. You know, the law must be followed, and if we don't, it would be illegal, and we put many people, including our educators and our educational system, at risk, including our children. So I see that as a non-negotiable. Do I agree with all of them? No, but you know, it's part of my job as a board member to follow those. As for guidance, you know, there's many state and local agencies that provide guidance. You know, this one is a great example. This is the School Board Governance pamphlet book from IASB, and I read it routinely. I read it when I first started, actually when I was running, and there's some great information here. And these are all guiding principles. But you see this last part of it is the code of conduct for members of school boards. And I encourage all the people running for school boards to read this if they haven't already. But this is something that I take and I've learned from. So I think the last piece is attendance of national conferences that are offered by these agencies or local conferences. And again, I do a lot of this. I've been to, I think, 8 or 9 in the last 10 years, outside of COVID, of course. And I do this to continue my learning, to be a good board member, to learn from surrounding districts. And I take this also very seriously. And it's part of this guidance and professional organization piece that I think the question is asking. So I feel it's essential to improve what I do and how I do it. So thank you for that question.
That's the end of our questions for this evening. We're going to move to the closing statements. Nancy, if you would start, please.
Sure. First, I just want to thank you again for having us. It was actually a lot of fun. And I usually at this point would tell you that, you know, this is wrap up why I want to do this, but I think there's something more important that I should talk about. Robert mentioned the LGBTQ parent committees. And he said that he was, told he couldn't come because he wasn't an ally. I think the problem here is what happened is there's a committee now for the parents, the LGBTQ parents. It's a support committee, and now there's a new committee that's there for parents like Robert who have questions or have comments or things they want to discuss. So I'm hoping and I'm thinking that he was probably offered the ability to go to that second new one. If he wasn't and he's interested in joining that one, I'm sure he will be welcome to do that. And we have never banned a person from going to a meeting without cause. And in this case,
So
we
what was
know
the
what
cause?
the cause was.
What was the cause that I got banned from?
Because you were not fitting in.
Time's up,
the
please.
right,
Well,
you didn't fit in the right.
that email was sent out to every parent in the district. Everybody was invited.
And you
And then I
went.
was, yes, and then I was not
And I
invited.
went too. And with his
I was kicked.
And you were banned because you.
And we will
voted in
cut
the
this
safe
part
spaces
from the video.
program. Yes, you did.
Maybe.
You did.
No,
That's
leave
right.
it in here. Leave it in here.
No,
Yeah.
It's very, that's,
absolutely.
leave it in
Linda.
there.
This is how she acts on the board too. It's very
Lori.
respectful.
Well, I've enjoyed answering the questions and hearing from all of the potential board members and everything. And, I'm impressed with a lot of the answers that I've heard here today. And I really do want to be on the school board. I feel like I have a lot to offer, and I hope that people will put me there. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina.
I've been invited by many groups to speak on my candidacy, and this last month I've spoken at 6 events and knocked on over 1,000 doors. Among the hundreds of community members and over 20 other school board candidates in neighboring districts, one topic is clear. We need to refocus our efforts on academics. We're struggling the same as our neighboring districts. We have similar challenges. And of all the challenges we face as a district, accountability, transparency, and trust come up in all areas. The two most important areas I want to focus on are fiscal management and open, honest communication. The other issue that affects student success is parental involvement. I want to encourage more positive parental involvement at the school and district level, especially at the board meetings. I want to increase more volunteer and feedback opportunities by increasing access and participation for parents and community members. What sets me apart as a candidate is that I am here and have been here at the board meetings, parent advisory council meetings, financial meetings, volunteer opportunities at multiple schools. I promise to continue to work hard to rebuild trust with open and positive communication and respectful communication. Thank you.
Robert.
I want to thank you very much for having us. This is a very informative meeting. I am running for this board because I want everybody included. I don't think it's right that parents, taxpayers that are paying into our public schools are being excluded from parent advisory committees. Everybody was invited to that, and everybody should be able to go. You can't pick and choose who goes to these meetings. It's, you know, that's where the division right there is coming into our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie.
My name is Connie Kane. I am a CPA. My analysis of the district's financial statement reveals that the district is 19 million in the red, which means the district does not have enough money to pay its bills. First, I discussed the need to agree on standards to measure academic achievement. Children should focus on core academic skills like reading, writing, and arithmetic. The school board must foster transparency and open the lines of communication to contribute to a cohesive community. Lastly, laws should always be considered, but guidelines must be dealt with individually and assessed for their impact on D300. I am Connie Kane. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you. Tola.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for setting this up. This is kind of a nice, informal kind of way to answer questions. Really appreciate it. I'm an innovative person. I have 20 plus years of project management. I have a great diverse background in ethnicity. I think I bring a lot to the table. I think I bring a different kind of experience to the board. I believe teachers need a lot of resources. It's okay not to be okay. It's just like the kids have social workers. They just need some kind of a contact within the school system that they can always reach out to if they need help. I'd like to make sure our tax dollars are being spent the way they're supposed to. And last but not the least, our kids are watching. And we need to pay close attention to how we act, how we react, and what we do in the community.
Thank you. Randy.
So this is a very important election. It's time to protect the public educational system and continue to move it forward. There is a national war going on against LGBTQIA plus individuals, and we must move forward. We cannot, it's not time to go backwards. We need to advance the rights and education of LGBTQIA plus children and staff, and we can't change the history of our country. We cannot ban books or whitewash history. There's no opt-out button for students after they graduate. It's important for us to educate the next generations of citizens, and it's important to make them kind, considerate, and educated. All three together. Otherwise, you don't have a full individual. But definitely want to thank you guys for having us.
I'd like to thank everyone for participating and watching this, what I would consider an unbiased look at the candidates for D300 Board of Education. I would urge you, each of you, to review everyone's background. I would urge you to review what they say and what they've done. This is not the time to elect individuals that are solely focused on special interests or have a weak leader on the board. District 300 is very healthy, and we want to keep it that way. We have amazing, talented, and a caring staff. and we're starting a critical transition of our superintendents, which requires good board leadership. I ask you for your support so we can continue to work towards improvements in our academic performance. And last, I would just like to say that last week I proudly received an endorsement from the District 300 educators, paraeducators, secretaries, and staff. And I thank them for that and their confidence in me. Please vote for me on April the 4th. I would be honored to continue to serve you. Thank you.
I want to thank the Algonquin Library for allowing us to use this space to hold our event. Thank you to the candidates for taking time to be with us today, and thank you to the viewers for using your time to learn more about the candidates. Neubert PTO does not endorse any candidate. We do hope that what you learned about the candidates will help you decide which candidates will best support the district to provide the opportunity for our students to reach their fullest potential. We encourage you to vote for those candidates on April 4th or during early voting. Thank you.